My friends, every generation is faced with a choice to quit when it's difficult or to push through until the purpose is fulfilled. The difference between ordinary men and extraordinary leaders is not strength, not wealth, not even talent. It is perseverance. I once met a woman who worked 2 jobs, raised her children alone, and still found time to serve her community. She told me, "I am tired every day, but I don't stop because my children deserve a better tomorrow." That woman was not famous, she was not on television, but she embodied greatness. Why? Because she understood that destiny does not bow to exhaustion. It bows to commitment. History itself is filled with stories of ordinary people who refused to surrender, farmers who became freedom fighters, workers who became innovators, dreamers who became leaders. They were not exempt from pain or fear or doubt, but when their strength failed, their vision carried them forward. Tiredness is temporary, change is permanent. You may feel weak tonight, but what you are building, your family, your dreams, your future, those things are eternal. And so I urge you, when you feel weary, do not measure your life by how tired you are. Measure it by how faithful you have been to the purpose you were born for. Yes, you will feel the weight of the journey. Yes, you will stumble. Yes, you may cry when no one is watching, but never forget the light of tomorrow belongs to those who refuse to quit today. So I say to you, rise again, shake the dust from your soul. Press on, not because the road is easy, but because the reward is worth it. Lift your head high, stand with courage, and declare, I will not stop when I am tired. I will stop when I am done. And when you finally cross that finish line, when you see the vision become reality, you will not only inspire yourself, you will inspire the world. Perseverance is the hidden ingredient that separates greatness from mediocrity. When you look at the people we celebrate, the heroes we honor, and the leaders who shaped history, you will notice something remarkable. They were not the strongest, they were not the wealthiest, and many of them were not the most talented in their generation. But what they all shared was a relentless spirit, a refusal to quit even when the world told them to stop. You see, talent can take you to the door of opportunity, but only perseverance keeps you inside the room. Strength may lift you for a moment, but perseverance will carry you through a lifetime. Wealth can buy you comfort, but perseverance builds you character. It is perseverance, not comfort, that carves greatness out of ordinary human clay. Think of the farmer who wakes up before the sun, day after day, planting seeds in the soil with no immediate proof of harvest. He works with patience, enduring the rain, the storms, and the heat, believing that one day his labor will turn into a field of abundance. That is perseverance. And when the harvest finally comes, we call him wise, diligent, and successful. But in truth, what made him great was not the harvest. What made him great was that he never quit sowing, even when the land looked empty. History is filled with stories like this. People who at first glance looked ordinary, fragile, and sometimes even unqualified. Yet they accomplished extraordinary things simply because they refused to stop. They refused to surrender to the voice of discouragement. They pressed forward even when tired, even when rejected, even when mocked. Greatness was not handed to them. They built it step by step, mistake by mistake, victory by victory, because perseverance would not let them abandon their purpose. I remember once speaking to a man who had built a small business from nothing. He had no investors, no wealthy family to back him, and no guarantee of success. In the early years, he failed more times than he could count. He told me how he sold his own furniture to keep the lights on, how he worked through nights when others were sleeping, and how many times he felt like giving up. But every time failure knocked him down, perseverance pulled him back up. Years later, that same man became a respected leader in his field, providing jobs for hundreds of families. When people asked him, what was the secret to your success? He didn't mention talent, luck, or intelligence. He simply said, I refuse to quit. That is the essence of perseverance. It does not guarantee you an easy road. It does not promise that you will never fall. What it does promise is that if you keep moving forward, you cannot remain where you are. Perseverance pushes you into progress. Every child who learns to walk shows us this truth. Watch a toddler take their first steps. They fall once, they fall twice. Sometimes they fall 10 times in a single attempt. But the child does not stop trying because of failure. They rise, they wobble, they stumble forward again. And eventually, those shaky steps turn into confident strides. No one remembers the falls. Everyone remembers the fact that the child walked. That is perseverance defining greatness in its purest form. And so it is with your own life. You may stumble in your career. You may fall in your relationships. You may feel the weight of rejection pressing you down. But your story is not defined by the fall. Your story is defined by whether you rise again. Because perseverance is not the absence of failure. It is the refusal to let failure have the final word. Perseverance redefines how we measure greatness. Society often celebrates the person who arrives first, but true greatness is found in the one who refuses to quit, even if it takes them longer. Society applauds the one with the loudest voice, but perseverance honors the one who kept speaking when no one listened. Greatness is not built in the spotlight. It is built in the dark, in those moments when only perseverance sees your effort, your pain, and your faith. So the question is not whether you will face obstacles. You will. The question is not whether you will grow weary. You will. The true question is whether you will keep moving when every reason tells you to stop. Because perseverance is the bridge between where you are and where you are meant to be. There is a truth I want you to hear today. Destiny does not answer how tired you are. It responds to how committed you remain. Too often we confuse exhaustion with completion. We assume that because we are weary, we must stop. But history proves otherwise. The men and women who accomplished the impossible were not those who never grew tired. They were those who refused to let tiredness dictate their destiny. Exhaustion is natural. Your body will feel it, your mind will feel it, and your emotions will wrestle with it. But destiny is not achieved by those who rest at the first sign of fatigue. Destiny is achieved by those who look tired in the face and say, "You may slow me down, but you will not stop me." That determination is what shifts a dream from imagination into reality. Consider the runner in a marathon. After the first few miles, energy is high, the crowd is cheering, and hope feels alive. But as the miles stretch on, the legs begin to burn, the lungs tighten, and the body cries out for relief. This is the moment where destiny separates itself from exhaustion. Many will stop at the side of the road, too tired to continue. But there are those who, even when their body screams no, whisper to themselves, "Keep going." And step by step, with sweat pouring and muscles trembling, they cross the finish line. Destiny bows to the one who stayed committed, not the one who felt the least fatigue. Think about the single parent who wakes up before dawn. They prepare meals, work long hours, and still manage to guide their children with love and discipline. Do you think they never feel exhausted? Of course they do. Yet they press forward because their commitment to their children's future outweighs their own weariness. That parent may never make headlines, but they embody greatness because destiny bows to their unwavering commitment. History is rich with similar stories. Inventors who spent years failing before discovering the solution that changed the world. Leaders who were mocked and ridiculed before their vision became reality. Writers who filled trash bins with rejected drafts before one book finally spoke to millions. What united them all was not a lack of exhaustion. It was the presence of fierce, unshakable commitment. Exhaustion whispers, "Stop now. You've done enough. No one will blame you if you quit." But commitment whispers louder, "This is not the end. Your purpose is greater than your pain. Keep moving forward." And in that battle of voices, the one you listen to determines the outcome of your destiny. I want you to think about the builder who lays brick upon brick. Each day feels repetitive. Each day feels heavy. There are days he goes home with blistered hands and aching bones. But he returns the next day because he knows that one more brick laid is one step closer to the vision becoming reality. The day the building finally stands tall, people marvel at its beauty. Yet few realize that the true miracle was not the finished structure. It was the builder's commitment to keep laying bricks, even when exhaustion tried to silence him. Destiny is not moved by how fast you run. I am not impressed by how strong you start. Destiny responds to the one who stays when others leave, who continues when others quit, who endures when others collapse. It bows in respect to the soul who chooses commitment over comfort. Yes, you will feel drained. Yes, you will face nights where you collapse in tears. Yes, there will be mornings where the thought of continuing feels impossible. But destiny does not demand that you never grow weary. It demands that you never surrender your commitment to the vision planted within you. Every dream requires this kind of resolve. Whether you are building a family, a business, a movement, or a future, there will be moments where your body is tired, your mind is clouded, and your heart feels heavy. But in those moments, remember this: exhaustion is temporary, but destiny is eternal. If you remain committed, no matter how heavy the journey becomes, destiny will bend to your faithfulness. When we look back through the chapters of history, it is easy to assume that the world was shaped only by great names, powerful leaders, or wealthy empires. But if you look closer, if you study the details, you will see a different truth. History has never been built solely by kings or generals. History has been written brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice, through the lives of ordinary men and women who dared to believe that their small actions could make a big difference. An ordinary farmer once left his fields to fight for freedom. He was not trained in the art of war. He had no armor of gold, no title of nobility, but he carried courage in his heart, and that courage made him a soldier in a cause greater than himself. Generations later, children would be born into a land of liberty because an ordinary man chose to stand. That is how history is shaped, not just by leaders in high places, but by everyday people who refuse to bow to fear. Think of the teacher who, in a small classroom with broken chairs and little resources, pours her life into the minds of children. She may never see her name in the newspapers, but her students will grow to become doctors, engineers, leaders, and innovators. And when those children change the world, they will carry within them the seed of knowledge planted by one ordinary teacher. She is a hero, though history may never carve her name in stone. Ordinary heroes are everywhere. They are the parents who sacrifice their own dreams so their children can chase theirs. They are the workers who labor long hours not for fame, but to keep a family together. They are the volunteers who feed the hungry, comfort the broken, and give hope to those who have none. The world often overlooks them, but heaven records their faithfulness. These men and women remind us that greatness does not always arrive with applause. Sometimes, greatness whispers quietly through the lives of those who keep serving when no one notices. The truth is, the majority of history is written not in palaces but in kitchens, not in parliaments but in fields, not in boardrooms but in classrooms. It is built in the sacrifices of people whose names the world may never remember, but whose impact the world can never forget. When we celebrate great achievements, we must not forget the countless hands that made them possible. Behind every breakthrough, there are ordinary people who give extraordinary effort. Behind every movement, there are unsung heroes who believed when others doubted. Behind every invention, there are sleepless nights, failed attempts, and quiet perseverance. Think of the nurse who sits by the bedside of the sick, holding their hand through the night. Think of the firefighter who runs into a burning building while others are running out. Think of the neighbor who checks on an elderly widow, making sure she does not feel forgotten. These are not stories that always make the headlines, but they are the very fabric of humanity. They are proof that history is not just made by the powerful, but by the faithful. When you study the great revolutions of the past, you will notice something profound. They were not started by giants. They were started by ordinary men and women who were simply unwilling to accept injustice any longer. It was the shoemaker, the merchant, the servant, the student who rose up together to demand change. It was the collective courage of ordinary people that toppled empires, challenged oppression, and gave birth to new nations. This is why we must never underestimate our own role in the story of humanity. You may think your actions are too small, your life too insignificant to matter. But history has proven that the smallest seed can grow into the tallest tree. What you do with consistency, what you give with faith, what you sacrifice with love, these things echo far beyond your own lifetime. You do not need a crown to change the world. You do not need wealth to shape history. You do not need fame to leave a legacy. What you need is the courage to stand when others sit, the strength to continue when others stop, and the faith to believe that even an ordinary life can make an extraordinary difference. We live in a world that measures almost everything, our achievements, our income, our strength, even our speed. But I want to remind you of something deeper, something that cuts through the noise of competition and the burden of exhaustion. Life is not measured by how tired you feel, but by how faithful you remain to the purpose placed within you. Fatigue is fleeting, but faithfulness is eternal. Too often we judge ourselves by our exhaustion. We say, I must be failing because I feel tired. I must be weak because I feel worn down. But tiredness is not the sign of weakness. It is the evidence that you are carrying weight, that you are engaged in something meaningful. What matters is not how weary you become, but whether you stay true to the mission, the calling, the dream that burns within you. Imagine a gardener who plants seeds in dry soil. Day after day, he waters the ground, but the sun scorches, the rain delays, and the ground looks barren. His back aches, his hands are blistered, and discouragement whispers, stop, it's useless. Yet he keeps tending the field. His fatigue grows, but his faithfulness is greater. And one morning, when no one expects it, the first green shoots pierce the soil. The harvest does not come because he was never tired. The harvest comes because he was faithful despite the tiredness. Every great achievement carries this story. A mother raising her children alone, working long hours, sometimes crying in silence. Fatigue follows her everywhere, but her love keeps her faithful. And years later, when those children rise and build lives of strength, it will not be her tiredness they remember, it will be her faithfulness. When we look at the lives of great leaders, inventors, and pioneers, we often admire the results, but overlook the struggle. Behind every book that inspired millions were nights when the writer wanted to quit. Behind every invention that transformed humanity were days of repeated failure and disappointment. Behind every movement that shook the world were leaders who went home exhausted, sometimes hopeless. But history does not record their fatigue. History records their faithfulness. Your fatigue will fade with time, but your faithfulness will echo into eternity. People will not remember how many times you yawned in frustration. They will remember how many times you stood up again after being knocked down. They will not recall the hours you felt weary. They will recall the moments you pressed forward, even when pressing forward seemed impossible. Think of the athlete who trains for years. There are mornings when the alarm clock feels like a curse, when muscles ache, and the mind says, enough. Yet the athlete laces up their shoes and runs anyway. And when they finally win the medal, the crowd cheers not because they were never tired, but because they never stopped being faithful to the training. Faithfulness is what transforms tired steps into lasting footprints. Fatigue is temporary. It fades when the body rests, when the sun rises, when the season changes. But faithfulness leaves a mark that outlives you. A parent's faithful love shapes generations. A teacher's faithful patience builds nations. A worker's faithful commitment sustains families. When you measure your life by fatigue, you will always feel defeated, because weariness is inevitable. But when you measure it by faithfulness, you will always find victory, because even the smallest act of consistency builds towards something greater. The real question of life is not, how tired are you? The real question is, how faithful have you been? And faithfulness is not glamorous. It is not always celebrated. It is waking up each day and showing up even when applause is absent. It is doing the right thing when nobody is watching. It is keeping a promise when breaking it would be easier. Faithfulness is not loud. It is steady, consistent, and unshakable. This is why life cannot be defined by fatigue. Tiredness is a condition of the body, but faithfulness is a condition of the soul. And when the body is weak, the soul can still remain strong. Your destiny, your legacy, your impact will not be written by how many times you felt worn out. It will be written by how many times you chose to remain faithful to the vision entrusted to you. Every race has a finish line, but the beauty of life is that your finish line is never just for you. It is for everyone who is watching, everyone who is learning, and everyone who will come after you. When you endure to the end, when you cross that line despite the pain and the setbacks, you don't just complete a task. You ignite hope in the hearts of others. The finish line is more than a personal victory. It is a generational torch. Think of the runner in the stadium. The crowd may not see the hours of training, the lonely mornings, the sacrifices no one applauded. But when that runner crosses the finish line, exhausted and gasping for breath, the roar of the crowd is not just for their speed. It is for their perseverance. That finish line becomes a testimony, a living reminder that struggle is worth it. That pain can produce glory. That endurance creates legacy. Your finish line is not measured in medals or trophies. It is measured in the impact it leaves behind. A parent's finish line might be seeing their child graduate after years of sacrifice. A teacher's finish line might be watching a student succeed in ways the world never expected. A leader's finish line might be handing the baton to the next generation, knowing they carried the vision as far as they could. These finish lines are inspiring because they remind us that the journey was not in vain. History has always been shaped by men and women who refused to stop before the finish line. Think about those who marched for freedom. Many of them faced jail cells, beatings, and threats to their very lives. They could have stopped. They could have said, "This is too much. We are too tired." But they pressed forward. And when they crossed their finish line, when change finally came, it was not only their victory, it became a source of courage for generations yet unborn. The finish line is powerful because it tells a story. It says to the next generation, "We endured, and so can you." It whispers to the weary, "Do not give up, because there is a reward waiting." It shouts to the broken, "Your pain has a purpose." And it echoes through history, reminding humanity that ordinary people can leave extraordinary footprints if they just keep moving forward. Think of the builder who spends decades working on a vision that seems too large, too costly, too demanding. Every brick feels heavy. Every delay tests his resolve. But one day, after years of persistence, the building stands complete. That finish line is not just about walls of stone. It is about the testimony of perseverance. Every passerby who sees that structure is reminded of what faithfulness can accomplish. Generations are not inspired by unfinished stories. They are inspired by the ones who stayed until the vision was complete. Children don't remember the parent who quit halfway. They remember the one who stayed, who kept showing up, who fought through exhaustion to make sure the family was provided for. Nations don't celebrate the leader who abandoned the cause. They honor the one who endured until justice prevailed. Legacies are not built on beginnings. They are built on finish lines. The truth is, finishing is never easy. The closer you get to the line, the heavier the weight becomes. Doubt grows louder, pain grows sharper, and the temptation to quit grows stronger. But it is in those final moments that your commitment is tested the most. And when you choose to keep going, when you push through the last stretch, that victory becomes something that others can carry with them. The finish line carries a power that fatigue cannot erase. It stands as proof that endurance works, that persistence pays off, that no struggle is wasted. It gives courage to the next dreamer, the next fighter, the next believer. It tells them, if they could do it, so can I. That is why your perseverance matters. That is why your journey matters. That is why you cannot stop halfway. Every finish line you cross becomes a foundation for someone else to stand upon. Every victory you secure becomes a reason for someone else to keep believing. And every time you complete the mission, no matter how small or how great, you are not just closing a chapter, you are opening a future for those who will follow in your footsteps. My friends, we have walked through truths that define the essence of greatness. We have seen that perseverance separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. We have understood that destiny bows not to our exhaustion, but to our unwavering commitment. We have remembered that history itself has been built by ordinary heroes, men and women who chose courage over comfort. We have learned that life must be measured not by the weight of our fatigue, but by the depth of our faithfulness. And we have seen that the finish line is never ours alone. It inspires generations yet unborn. So now the question turns to you. What will you do with the life that has been entrusted into your hands? Will you stop when you are tired, or will you stop when you are done? Will you allow weariness to silence your vision, or will you press forward with faithfulness until your story becomes a testimony? Will you live for comfort, or will you live for commitment, knowing that your choices today will echo far beyond tomorrow? This is your moment. This is your race. This is your legacy in the making. Do not despise small beginnings. Do not measure yourself by fatigue. Do not surrender when obstacles rise against you. Stand tall. Stay faithful. Push forward, because the world is waiting, heaven is watching, and destiny is listening for your answer. Let the generations after you say, they did not quit. They endured. They finished. Let your life be the evidence that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they refuse to stop. And when your story is told, let it declare with power and conviction, I did not stop when I was tired. I stopped when I was done.